Welcome back, Careblazer. Dr. Natali here, and in today's video, we are talking about a topic that is often misunderstood, and that is early onset dementia. We're going to cover what it is, who's at risk, and how it differs from late onset dementia, as well as some of the unique factors and circumstances that people with early onset dementia experience. Let's start out with the question, what exactly is early onset dementia? Early onset dementia, sometimes also referred to as young onset dementia, is any type of dementia that begins before the age of 65. So this means that it can include Alzheimer's disease, frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, any type of dementia, so long as it is formed before the age of 65. So sometimes when we hear people talking about stages of dementia, we'll hear people talking about middle and late, or mild, moderate, and severe. It's important to note that early onset does not mean an early stage of dementia. We're talking about the age at which somebody is diagnosed, not the severity of the dementia. That's often a confusing thing and something that's often misunderstood. Early onset refers to age, not the severity. Okay, so who is at risk for developing early onset dementia? There are about 4 groups of people that tend to be at higher risk for developing dementia at an earlier age. So, number 1, while early onset dementia is relatively rare, about 5% of all dementia cases account for this early onset dementia. People who tend to get it are those who have a strong genetic predisposition for developing it. So these are people whose genetics put them at increased risk. They tend to have more of a chance of developing it at a younger age. Number 2 would be people who have Down syndrome. Those individuals often have a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease in particular at a younger age. Third, those with poor cardiovascular health, basically people who have poor heart health, tend to be at increased risk for young onset dementia. And then finally, those with head injuries, either a severe head injury in the past or repeated head injuries in the past, can make somebody at increased risk for them to develop dementia at an earlier age. Now, again, it's important to remember, as I've mentioned in many of my previous videos, having risk factors is not a guarantee that you will develop dementia. It's always recommended to talk with your healthcare professional if you have serious concerns about your own risk so that they can walk you through what options might be available for you in terms of early detection or identification and things like that. Okay, so we've answered the question, who is at risk for developing early onset dementia? So how does that differ from late onset dementia? If early onset dementia is any dementia that begins before the age of 65, late onset dementia is considered any dementia that begins at the age of 65 or later. And early onset dementia differs from late onset dementia in several ways. Number 1, usually in the diagnostic process. It is often much more difficult for somebody with early onset dementia to get a diagnosis in a timely manner because the majority of cases, about 95%, happen to people who are 65 and older. When a younger person presents with problems with their thinking and functioning, dementia tends to be at the bottom of the differential diagnosis process. It's not like the diagnosis people go to right away. And so it can take a longer time for the healthcare professionals to come up with a diagnosis. So definitely the time is one of the major differences. Another way early onset differs from late onset is that early onset tends to progress faster than late onset cases. Not all the time, as with so much that we talk about here, there's always exceptions, but generally speaking, early onset dementia progresses faster than late onset dementia. The third way it differs is the type of dementia. So basically, there are certain types of dementia that tend to be more common in younger people. For example, frontotemporal dementia. So it tends to be that the younger you are, you might have one of these types of dementia versus something like Alzheimer's disease, which is much more common for late onset. And then finally, another way that it differs is in the symptom presentation. So typically, the younger somebody is when they develop dementia, the less likely they are going to present with the memory loss and confusion that we often associate with people who have dementia. So typically, younger onset presents with symptoms with like maybe behavioral change or language changes. It's not typically what we think about and what we see a lot on TV, which is also linked to why in that first we talked about the diagnostic, how it delays diagnosis for many people. These two are related because the symptom presentation is often not memory loss related. It makes it more difficult for people to realize, oh, maybe this is a type of dementia. And just as a little side note, like we've talked about before, you don't have to have memory loss to have a dementia diagnosis. Okay, we've talked about what it is. We've talked about how it differs from late onset dementia. I want to talk about unique challenges that people with early onset dementia face. Number one, it often impacts the person's career. Because we're talking about a condition that develops before the age of 65, many of the people are still working. They might still be very much in the midst of trying to save for their nest egg, build financial stability, and getting a diagnosis at this age is going to have a huge career impact. Along the same lines, it tends to have significant financial strain because at a time where people are really focused, maybe at the peak of financial responsibility considerations, they are now faced with something that's going to detour their whole plans and their planning for the future. Another way it differs is in family responsibilities. Many people are raising kids at this age when they're diagnosed with early onset. They might also even be caring for aging parents. And so here they are responsible for kids and or aging parents, and now they have this condition themselves. And I'd say another way it really differs is the social isolation, and definitely more difficult to find support, both peer support, but also just support and community resources. A lot of the wonderful programs that we have available for older adults and communities, they're really geared towards people who are 65 years old and older. So if you're 50, 55, maybe even younger than that, it can kind of feel like you don't really have a place where you belong, or it can feel like their activities and programs are not quite a good fit for you. Or in some cases, unfortunately, the person might not even qualify to attend some of those programs because they don't meet the minimum age of 65. So early onset dementia certainly presents with some unique challenges, and just understanding more about them is certainly the first step in navigating this journey. I hope this video has been helpful to you in some way. If you're interested in finding a support group, being able to ask dementia experts like myself, elder law attorneys, board certified neuropsychologists, questions and getting feedback on your situation, I really encourage you to check out our Care Collective, where we offer weekly support groups, weekly expert Q&As, as well as a library filled with dementia trainings and resources available to you 24/7. And there's a link in the description below this video. You can check it out to learn more about it. You can also go to our website, www.careblazers.com, and then click on the For Families button, and you'll see all of our services and help that we offer for family caregivers. I'm sending you so much love, Careblazer. Keep up the great work. And as always, I'll be back next week with a new video.
Also, Nico gets a belly rub for every person who subscribes from this video. So if you haven't already, click the red subscribe button. It's totally free. And Nico says, thank you very much.